Paul Erasmus has told the High Court in Johannesburg how he broke into the family home of anti-apartheid activist Dr. Neil Aggett in Cape Town. He said he did so on the orders of the police chief interrogator, Stephen Whitehead. Erasmus has been testifying at the inquest into the death of Aggett, who was found hanging in his cell in February 1982. Erasmus related how he stole several letters from the home in the hope of finding evidence that Aggett was suicidal. He's also told the inquest Aggett's hanging was staged and his death covered up. For an update, we cross now to SABC News reporter Hasina Gore. Hasina, just give us an update of what has been happening till now.
So far yesterday, as you mentioned, we heard the first testimony from a former security branch police officer. Before this, we've heard from political detainees as well as other black police officers who were not directly involved in interrogation as well as in the torture of political detainees. So this was the first testimony that we got from someone that was part of the interrogation and the torture of detainees, someone that worked in John Foster as well as with other informants and across the country. Yesterday we heard from Paul Erasmus telling us how they were trained in Pretoria at the headquarters of the security branch on how to interrogate and to break detainees. He explained there were 10 steps, including sleep deprivation and breaking down a person both physically and emotionally. He explained how they were taught how to torture a person and assault them without leaving marks, usually using an open hand. These were some of the testimony that we heard. We also heard more regarding Aggett's death with regards to the 1982 inquest, which was the first inquest which ruled his death a suicide. And Erasmus told the court that at that time they were told that all evidence had to be searched for no stone unturned and ensuring that there was no liability to state security when it came to the death of Neil Aggett, and it had to be ruled a suicide. He explained how they went to Cape Town and looking for evidence. Those letters that you mentioned, those were hoped to find some kind of evidence that Aggett was suicidal and he had these tendencies and that his death was not by any chance linked to any torture or any detention in John Foster. He also explained how mock trials were held on the 10th floor of John Foster, where they were basically going through the trials to ensure that any questions that were put through, any evidence that they found would ensure that no liability will be found by the state security branch. Today we expect Paul Erasmus to return to the stand and he will be being cross-examined by the state.
What was the general reaction to this testimony? It's quite harrowing.
It was quite harrowing. You heard and you saw, some of the family members that were sitting in court today almost cringing, a kind of shock as well. And we've seen this kind of emotional reaction to the testimony in this week quite a lot. The day before, when we heard one of the last political detainees take the stand, we saw people tearing in the gallery as they listened to these accounts. So it's, as Paul Erasmus did mention, though, that these are opening wounds, and not just for those that were tortured, but also those that tortured. He was discharged from the security branch with PTSD as well.
All right, just take us through the mood in the court this morning following that surprising, very interesting testimony.
Today we see court filling up quite early with many coming in to listen to the testimony. We expect also to hear from Dr. Aziz later, who was an Umkhonto we Sizwe strategist. He's also expected to take the stand today and give evidence after Paul Erasmus.
Thank you so much for that update, our reporter Hasina Gore.